If you are in business or in sales, you will never make the impact or the income that you could potentially make without mastering the skill of networking. And I know this because I myself have went from being a scientist who was super shy and introverted, and I have taken it up and made it a point to learn how to network effectively and strategically. And doing so has not only allowed me to increase my income, but also meet amazing friends, business partners, and my current mentor. And this episode, we're going to be discussing networking, especially if you're shy, and three strategies that you can use in 2022 to network more effectively. So, welcome back to Sundays with Josue, a weekly live video podcast that is designed to serve as education and inspiration for the next generation of entrepreneurs. And I started this show because I truly believe that everyone has within them the potential to change and make an improvement in themselves so that they can be more effectual and make a greater impact in the world. And I know that because I did it myself. I went from someone who was super shy, introverted, and didn't really, have much tact in that area to being someone who has been able to start my own business, create content, excuse me, and have this live video show. So, with that being said, we're going to jump straight into this week's episode and topic, one that is super near and dear to my heart, and that is networking, especially in networking in 2022. This is one of the things that, there's not much content out there in regards to how to network appropriately and effectively. So I wanted to go ahead and fill the gap for my audience, for those of you who may want to improve your networking ability and social skills so you can make more impact and greater income. So, with that being said, let's hop straight on into it. So, firstly, why? Why? Why should we even think about networking in 2022? With everything going on, especially if you're in business or in sales, with learning how to handle objections, with dealing with, KPIs and things of that nature, why is it that networking is something that we should all be focusing on and trying to improve? Well, there's three main reasons. So, firstly, we all know that your network is your net worth. That's a very common saying, and it's one that I truly believe is 110% true and factual. Now, if you are someone who doesn't know how to properly network, make connections, etc., you're basically held victim of randomness of life. You don't have the ability to go out there and choose and create your social circle. You're basically pigeonholed in to whoever comes into your network through osmosis and random variability, which is not good. It's better to be in a position where you can choose to go out and create friends and make connections and be in a place of abundance and power versus being in a place where life is happening to you. Now, that's one reason. But secondly, you can also use it to acquire clients. Being able to network effectively and position yourself appropriately as someone who is calm, cool, collected, reliable, dependable, and expert in their field, etc., is super important for giving you the good old know, like, and trust. Because people buy from people they know, like, and trust, right? So if someone doesn't know you, they can't buy from you. If they don't trust you, then they won't buy from you. If they don't like you, they likely will not purchase any of your products or services. So, learning how to network effectively is also important for procuring clientele as well. And now, lastly, you can also use networking to find a mentor. If you ask any entrepreneur who's successful, most of the times, if you ask, what is something you wish you had done sooner? A very common answer you'll get is, I wish I would have hired a mentor or found a mentor or found someone to mentor me. And that's because it is so much easier to make progress when you're not making the 10 most common mistakes that every entrepreneur makes. Now, you could go ahead and, look up things like that and learn from books, etc. But there is something about having someone in your life who has been there and done that and walked the walk, and being able to ask them questions particular to you and having them help you out. That is something that is super, super powerful. And that is literally money in your pocket when you have someone who is able to do that for you. So let's assume now that we can both, and we can all agree that networking is something worth putting our time into. So now the question then is, well, okay, we now have the why, but what about the how? So let's go ahead and talk some strategy. So now the first thing is working your warm market. Now, most likely, and that just simply means, by the way, the people that you know, the people in your contact list, the people on your Instagram or your Facebook pages, those who are following you or who you're following, people you know, more likely than not, there is, like, let's say, for instance, if you are someone who needs funding for a startup, more likely than not, there is someone within your social circle that has excess capital that they could invest. Maybe it's a wealthy uncle or aunt. Maybe it's not someone in your immediate family. Maybe it's someone in your extended family. And then here's the kicker: if not someone in your immediate social circle, more likely than not, someone you know has access to that person. And now it's not just in terms of capital, it can also be in terms of knowledge. So, for instance, if you want to break into a new industry, so for myself, when I wanted to get into insurance, I went and made it a point to educate myself. However, one regret that I do have is that I didn't reach out to more people in my network. I ended up realizing after the fact that I have people in my network, or rather, I had people in my network at that time who were already in insurance. So instead of me scouring Google and trying to figure things out using articles, I could have just asked one of my friends or a friend of my friends, how do I get into this industry and how do I break in? And ironically enough, one of the first positions I actually landed in the insurance industry was not someone I was not under someone that I knew personally, but it was under a friend of a friend. So working your warm market is extremely important. It's super easy. It's free. You already have access to these people. They already know you, like you, and trust you. So why not reach out to them? And that is the next portion, which is your mindset. Oftentimes, especially for me personally, when I have to reach out to my warm market, one of the first things that I feel is I don't want to seem pushy or needy or beggy or bothersome to the people I'm talking to. And that's a very common uh question and perception that is had within this experience. And I have seen this both in myself as well as in others. If you just YouTube how to network, one of the first videos that pops up is how do I not seem pushy or needy, right? Now, the thing about that is that it's twofold. The solution to that, firstly, is realizing that you're your worst critic. Oftentimes, you yourself view yourself in a more negative light than any other person with whom you're interacting. So if you see yourself as someone who is needy or pushy, unless you're highly self-aware, and unless you're highly self-aware, more likely than not, the perception of you by other people is not that is not the case. They're not looking at you like you're super bothersome, needy, etc. Now, that's the first thing, is just realizing that most likely it's all in your head, and that these people may not feel that way if you were just to reach out, especially if they're already your friends and people within your social circle. However, let's go ahead and discuss point number two. Let's say you're reaching out to a friend of a friend, and perhaps this is someone who is sought after very frequently and has their time split beneath a plethora of different things. Now, in this case, maybe you are a bit bothersome. So the first thing is, to that point, well, in 10 years or in 5 minutes, it won't really matter that much anyway. Before reaching out to this person, you did not have the resource you're trying to seek, whether it's knowledge or finances. And after reaching out, if they reject you, you're in the exact same position. So nothing has changed. However, if the person is able to give you those resources or that knowledge or even that time, or there's that one key piece of insight, your life may change forever. Now, point number two is a concept that like to call leaning into the punch. This has also been called lampshading in film, but basically you bring up the objection or you bring up the complaint beforehand. So what does that look like practically? So let's say I'm at a networking event and I want to reach out to perhaps one of the speakers. Instead of just walking up and saying, "Hi, can I bother you? Can I?" Instead of just saying, I almost did it wrong there because I'm so used to doing it properly. But instead of just saying, "Hi, can I have XYZ?" and just going for the ask immediately, what is more tactful and more palatable and is going to be received a lot better is simply saying, hey, name, I'm sorry to bug you. I know you're busy and you probably get this very often, but can I have XYZ moment of your time? Or would you mind giving me some insight on XY, whatever the case may be, right? You can, fill in those blanks to whatever your circumstance is. But you can see how in this example, you're meeting it head on and you're acknowledging with social tact and saying, hey, I see you. I'm aware that what I'm doing may make you uncomfortable and may be a bit of a burden. And I apologize for that up front. So you're leaning into the punch, and that just lets that little head nod, that little acknowledgement, the head nod of, hey, I know you're a busy person. I know this happens a lot. And that bit of empathy can go so far, because it shows that you have social tact and that you actually care, that you give a crap to even mention the fact that you may be affronting this person's sensibilities, which will go a long way. So with that being said, one of the best networking strategies you can use in 2022 is reaching out to your warm market. And I know it's maybe uncomfortable, it may be a bit awkward, but pushing through that is one of the best things you can do to supercharge your networking abilities and start to create for yourself a better social circle and life and also business. So that's strategy number one. So now we also have number two, and that's in person events. Now, one of the things, and I'll just be very candorous, one of the things about in person events is that it's difficult. A lot of times we are shy to ask for different things or to approach people in person. Maybe it's not in our comfort zone. However, in person networking, especially events that are catered to networking, are one of the highest ROI activities you can do if you're trying to really build your social circle and your network of and your sphere of influence within your community. And here is the reason why. So, firstly, the caliber of people you're going to meet at these events is extremely, extremely high. And that is because the average person doesn't just go to a networking event. If someone's going to a networking event, they are trying to meet the movers and shakers in their industry. They're trying actively to better their business, better themselves, better their lives. And people like that tend to be good people to know for your business or just even to have as friends. So, for example, myself, when I first went to an event recently with the New Standard Group, quick shout out to them. They're in Tampa, Florida. So if you're in the Tampa area, make sure to check them out. But I was amazed. I went to that networking mixer and there were doctors, pilots, real estate developers, people in banking and finance. Matter of fact, I was able to find out about a free business consulting resource here in Tampa Bay through a banker who I met at that event. So, you're not going into a room where it's just the average person. You're going into a room full of people who are really trying to connect and make a change. And that's super powerful. And that's another benefit of going to these types of events is the overall mental state of the participants and the attendees of the event. These people who are going to a networking event are trying to network. It seems very elementary and very common sense, but when you really understand that, you're not going to, you know, a Starbucks and someone's in the mindset of, oh my God, I have not had my morning coffee. I am frustrated and upset. I just need to get my freaking pumpkin spice latte and get out. That's not what's going through people's heads at that time. At least it shouldn't be at a networking event. What should be going through their head and what most likely is going through their head is, how can I meet someone who I can help or who can help me? So everyone at a networking event, for the most part, is in the state of mind of helping people, learning from people, absorbing and improving their circumstance and the circumstance of those around them. And this makes it so much easier. Now, I know I mentioned that in-person networking events can be difficult, but that's primarily because of what's going on between your own two ears. In your own mind, for most people, especially if you're introverted or shy like I used to be, it's super difficult to go to somebody you don't know and say hi. It's awkward. It's weird. You haven't done it before. It feels uncomfortable. But the thing is, when you first do it, you will be amazed. I can guarantee at just how receptive people are. And guess what? If they aren't receptive, you're not going to get like shot or stabbed just because you went up to someone at a networking event of all places and said hello. So I would highly, highly recommend in-person networking events as well. Now, also, this is the final portion about this is that you can find extremely niche specific networking events. So if you're a realtor, you can find events catered to realtors. If you're someone in insurance, same thing. Just about any industry there will be a networking event for that. And you're going to find people in your industry who are looking to meet, connect, and help each other at those events. So those are an amazing way to network in 2022, especially now that things are getting a bit more open up. Not completely, but they're getting, things are going in the correct direction. And I would reckon that by 2023, especially 2024, things should be back to normal. So, that's something else to keep in mind. So once again, I'm not going to leave you all hanging. I'm going to not only give you strategies, but also systems and ways to do this practically. So here is the how for in-person events. I'm going to give you everything you need, okay? There's going to be no more excuses to not do this because by the end of this training, you're going to understand fully how to make this actually reality. So here are two very easy ways. So the first of which is meetup.com, and the second of which is good old fashioned Facebook. So meetup.com, for those of you who don't know, is a social media website that is designed to allow people to meet up, as you can imagine. So that site is a great site to find things such as happy hours, networking events, etc. Now, I will say that Meetup is not as business centric. It's a lot more general. So just, primarily it's for people who are new to a certain town, who are trying to find friends and make connections. However, there are business groups within the meetup.com platform as well. There are groups in real estate, which is a very popular one, finance, lesser to a lesser extent, and then, of course, you have marketing. Tech is a really big niche in the meetup community. So I would highly advocate 110% that meetup.com is a great place to go. Now, secondly, I did say Facebook, specifically Facebook groups. You can find Facebook groups just about on any topic. And the powerful thing about the Facebook groups is that typically on their wall, they'll have resources and guides, and you can really connect with people. And the great thing about that as well, this is a pro that Meetup has, that Facebook has that Meetup does not have. And that is of the overall behavior pattern of the people on Facebook. Within a Facebook group, people are chatting, leaving comments, posting on the wall, posting photos. You can really start to almost connect and get a vibe of people before even going to the event in person. Whereas in Meetup, depending on the group with which you are in and participating, that may or may not be the case. But for Facebook, it's the case all the way around. So that's a super powerful benefit. So once again, how to find these events: Meetup, Facebook. Those are two ways. And here's a bonus: Google. Come on, like if you can find an event within 50 miles of you, almost guaranteed. And if not, send me a message and leave a comment below and let us know where you're at that you were unable to find an event. And quick little plug, if you guys are enjoying this content so far, we're 2 out of the 3 strategies done so far. Go ahead and make sure you hit like on this video. And if you aren't subscribed to this channel already, go ahead and subscribe. I appreciate it so much. It helps to get this in front of more people, to help out more people who may need this information. So with that being said, let's go ahead and touch on the third and final strategy. And that is going to be hosting networking events. Now, I know you're saying, whoa, Josue, I can't host an event. What do you mean? Like, there is no way. That sounds like so much work. It sounds so difficult. There is no way I could be a host. What do you mean? Me? Yes, you can definitely do it. Hosting events are actually deceptively easy. So, for example, for myself, I actually started an event company, a very small event company, and my business partner Michael and I, we started hosting these events, and it was amazing. It literally changed our lives. From that company and from those events, we ended up meeting so many amazing people who are really and honestly lifelong friends and business partners and investors. There are people who have said, "Hey, if you ever need anything to get to any startup capital, anything at all, we will help you out." We can end up getting connected with, and also we end up meeting clients that way as well. So hosting events is a very powerful thing. But here's the first point about this: it is deceptively easy, and this is coming from experience. So I'm going to give you option 1 and option 2. Option 1, start it from the ground up. So if it's, for example, if it's a Facebook group in your local area. So for instance, realtors and wine, something like that. So you can literally just make a group that are a bunch of people who are realtors or interested in so either you're a realtor, you're looking to buy a home, or you're a real estate developer or investor, and you also like wine. Those two demographics are pretty large, and there's definitely going to be an overlap. So you're able to niche down while still actually having a large overall market. So that's one example. Also too, you could even do that on Meetup. It doesn't have to just be on Facebook, but you would be amazed at just how receptive people are to starting these things up. And so for us, what we did was create Life in the 727. And what we would do is throw happy hours and mixers. It was a very casual thing. But what we were able to do is consistently generate 20, 30 people to come up to these establishments and just hang out, get to know each other, and build connections. And what's amazing about when you start hosting these events, especially in regards to how easy it can be, is that depending on where you are, especially if you're in a more populated area, people are looking to connect, especially after these lockdowns have been relaxed and released. People are looking to connect. So you may find that without very much effort or much marketing, that your group will grow extensively. And if you guys want me to do a more in-depth training on how you can go about starting your own group, whether it be on Facebook or Meetup or whatever, let me know in the comments, and I'll go ahead and make sure I add that to the pipeline of videos I have coming out. So now here's option number 2 for hosting your own events. If you don't want to build it from the ground up, which I can totally understand, and honestly, option number 2 may actually be preferred and more wise. Instead of starting from the ground up, partner with an already established brand or group. Partner with them and get yourself in a position of leadership or just being there to support and help out. Oftentimes, these organizations that are doing these things to help bring people together are doing so out of passion and love. And if they're a nonprofit, doubly so. So, you just being there to say, hey, can I help with flyers or organizing events or helping with your itinerary? Can I even be a host? Whatever the case may be, how can I help and be of service? And now, watch this, you're now in a position of leadership in a networking event and a networking group. And so now you don't have to build it from the ground up. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to be part of the team that is helping to make the product and make the service. In this case, that is the events. So that's a more scalable way if you want to do it, while also not making it all consuming. Because I will say that depending on the caliber, the niche that you're in for hosting events, it can be very time intensive. So okay. So hopefully I just have expressed and explained to you adequately why it is possible for you to host events with greater ease than you would have initially thought. Let's assume that has been achieved. Yay for me. Now, point number 2, once again, going back to why. Why is it worth hosting events? And why is it that I actually find and I actually personally consider this to be my number one method of networking? So there are 3 main reasons. So the first of which is a very unique pro, and that is what is called by the high school cool kid effect. So this was an idea that was put forward by Gary Vaynerchuk, and one that I have found in my own life to be 100% true. And the story goes like this. Do you remember back in high school that one person that, maybe wasn't necessarily the most popular person in school, but they perhaps had like a home that was available to be used for social events, most likely parties, whether it be because their parents were super laissez-faire or relaxed, or their parents were out of town, etc. Their spot was the spot. And what would happen is oftentimes that individual who had access to the basically event space would oftentimes make connections and have more friends and would be basically become the de facto cool kid simply by having access to that resource that no one else did. Well, in adulthood, this is also true. A very, very common phenomenon is after college or high school, especially if someone has moved cities, it is extremely difficult for people to find friends as adults. If you look into it, it's one of the most commonly asked questions. How do I make friends as adults? So imagine you are the individual who is in the position of providing this networking opportunity for the people who are coming and attending this event. That is a humongous pro. And it's unique to being a host, because if you went as an attendee, you are the person that's providing that service to them. So when you are the host, you immediately are elevated to a point of esteem because you are now providing that service. People are in a state of gratitude to you because you have provided them a service that they did not have, that most likely they sought out. Someone had to seek out your group. So whether it's like realtors, finance, marketing, etc., or just new to people who are new to town. Someone literally had to seek you out and find you, and then also show up in person or virtually. They are happy to be there. They're excited to be there, and they want to meet you and everyone else at the event. So that is an extremely powerful thing. Think about that paradigm for starting off a relationship with somebody compared to, if they would just saw your ad. Maybe perhaps an unsolicited ad, So you're initially starting off the relationship on the right foot. And as we all know, first impressions are some of the most important uh impressions that you can ever have. So that's the first thing, the cool high school kid effect. Just by hosting the event, you are now a cool kid. You officially have your cool kids badge. Congratulations. Now, Number two is that if you are hosting an event and doing it properly, you will meet every single person that comes because you're the host. So you should ideally be going around talking to people, networking, making connections, helping other people meet each other. You should be literally, per your job description, doing that. However, that is super, super powerful because everyone will know your name, they will know you. And if you introduce yourself properly, which you can talk about, but if you introduce yourself properly and saying, hey, my name is Josue, I'm in the financial services sector. I help protect families. I'm in life insurance, health insurance. If you know anybody that ever needs it, please get me in mind. Hey, you mentioned you're in tech, right? Well, Barbara, or Barbara over there is also, she just got her master's in computer science. Let me introduce you. Let me introduce you to her. Boom. So now let's just make the person I did in that example. Let's make him Bob because Bob is a classic. So now Bob knows that I'm in financial services, I help protect families, and that I'm in life insurance and health insurance, and he'll keep me in mind if he does have anybody that needs that service or if he himself needs that service. But in addition, I'm also the cool guy that helped him meet his new best friend Barbara. It's a win-win. So by being the host of an event, you literally have the power to meet and connect with every single person that walks in through the door. And if not every single person, then 80% plus, which is powerful. Versus being an attendee, you may not have that same experience because it may be a bit awkward for you. Might be less receptive due to the cut of your jib. You never know. But when you're the host, if you say, "Hi, my name is so and so. I'm the host of the event. Nice to meet you. How is your evening going so far? Is everything okay?" That is totally appropriate and is honestly expected. So, enough about that. The third unique pro is that when you are hosting a networking event, you are uniquely in a position where, once again, you are leading with value. You're giving these people something from the first moment they even hear your name. When you are the host, your first time meeting somebody, you have basically given them a free gift, especially if the event was free. You have been the person to provide this service to them, and they are going to be grateful. Period. It is amazing just how grateful people are for doing something as simple as hosting a happy hour. I would sometimes feel bad when people would just be lavishing me with appreciation and gratitude because I'm like, organize some things, call some people. I didn't seem to be that much of a big deal for myself, but you would be surprised. So you're leading with value, which is super powerful. You're not asking for anything, you're just giving, giving, giving. And lastly, this is how things connect. So, firstly, you're leading with value and you're giving to these attendees. Secondly, you have met every single person. So once again, if you did it right, you can now help people meet who need to meet. Once again, Bob and Barbara. Bob is a computer programmer. Maybe he's working at Google. He's doing great things. Barbara just graduated. They should probably meet and say hi. They probably have common interest. Perhaps not necessarily that every single coder is the same, but people with similar career paths tend to be similar because we pick our career paths because of our personality predispositions. So hosting an event, while it may seem daunting intellectually, is actually not that bad, and you most likely will find extremely powerful, unique pros that you will not find anywhere else. So, guys, if you think that this is something you can do, I would really love to hear in the comments. If you have any questions at all, if it's whether on how to introduce yourself, how to structure events, what to do, please let me know. Because I mean, this is something I really enjoyed doing in that part of my life. And it's something I would love to share because as an introverted person, for me, it was super hard to do it at first. But I trained myself and I spent so much time. And 2 years later, here I am passionate about it. So, anyway, that being said, so we have now just discussed 3 different strategies for going ahead and networking in 2022. We talked about, firstly, tapping into your warm market and why that is so important and the mindset shifts that we need to make in order to make that a possibility for us, realizing that, hey, most likely I'm just getting in my own way. These people don't actually see me as a pest or a bother. It's just me, myself. And so just ask. Number 2, we also have discussed um, networking in person by going as an attendee to an event that you found on either meetup.com or Facebook. And we discussed the power in that, and that you are going to be connecting with people who are the movers and the shakers in your industry, as well as people who are in a state of mind of, I want to meet people and help other people and give value and receive value. I want to get business cards and exchange business cards. I want to do this. So let's do this. And lastly, we have talked about hosting networking events, which is something that is super, super daunting. But when you break it down, it may not be that bad after all. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive right on into the Q&A. So for those of you who don't know, my Instagram is just my name. That's why you see the at Josue Deloyer on the screen there. That's my handle for everything besides Twitter, because my last name is so long that it doesn't fit onto my Twitter handle. That's neither here nor there. But you can ask me questions on Instagram, and I'll include them in these live streams. So I do have 3 questions from my Instagram that I'm going to bring up onto the screen. So the first one is that Moss has asked, any tips for making small talk? Yes. Yes, Moss, I do have a great tip for making small talk. So here's how to make small talk in a very simple manner. Imagine that when you're having a conversation, you're going along a straight line. You're going from A to B. And, now sometimes when going from A to B, sometimes different, within going from A to B, you're going to find what are called different conversational threads, or what can be called different conversational threads pop up. So, for instance, let's say you're talking to someone named Barbara. We're going to use Bob and Barbara on this episode. So, let's say you're talking to someone named Barbara, and you ask Barbara, "Hey Barbara, nice to meet you. My name is Moss. I'm in finance. What do you do?" "Oh, well, that's cool, Moss. I have some family in finance. I myself am in nursing. It's been pretty good. I've been enjoying it so far." "Okay, cool. Where'd you move down from?" Okay, boom. Let's leave it there. She's a nursing. She's enjoyed it so far. So from there, she has mentioned that she has family in finance, as well as that she's in nursing and she's enjoying it so far. So within this, it's almost like a choose your own adventure, right? You can either ping off of and bounce off of the topic of her family in finance. "Oh, really? You have family in finance? Well, what aspect? What are they in insurance? Are they in mergers and acquisitions? Are they in banking?" You can ask a question about that, or you can talk about nursing. She has mentioned that she's enjoying it. You can ask her, "Well, what type of nurse are you? What do you enjoy about nursing?" Just genuinely asking questions about the different things that she has brought up, and actually having genuine interest, giving a crap. That is the most powerful thing. So, firstly, recognizing and being aware that throughout the conversation, there's going to be different jump off points and different things you can talk about within someone's natural, speech. Typically people don't just talk about one thing only. They do mention side pieces and people ramble. So just be aware and be actively listening for different things you can ask about, especially if it's a common interest. Like if you play Dungeons and Dragons and Barbara's like, "Yeah, I'm a nurse, but I also play Dungeons and Dragons every now and again." You should, and if you don't care about nursing, you should probably say, "Hey, like that's pretty cool. I'm into D&D as well." Super easy. So doing those 2 things and being aware and listening and actually giving a crap and being genuinely interested in what she's talking about or what they are talking about is a super powerful technique. So that's one way. There's other ways to make small talk easier, but for me, what I personally do is just listen actively and find different points of interest when they're talking that you can talk about yourself or ask more questions about, and just be generally interested, because everyone's story is different. You can take 2 people who are both nurses and they became a nurse for different reasons. So Moss, when you're watching this, if either live on the replay, I hope this brings you value and I hope that answers your questions adequately. And if not, I'll do a follow up, because I think that small talk is a topic that a lot of people want to know more about, but that oftentimes there's not enough information about it. All right, so we have Enoch ask, "I feel awkward when I talk. Any tips?" Yes, Enoch. So I have been there myself. Feeling awkward is something that I definitely have struggled with in the past. And I mean, oftentimes on this live stream, I've been there. So feeling awkward whenever you're talking is normal. Okay. We are all our own worst critics. That is something I'm going to perpetually say again and again and again. We are all, say it with me now, what? Our own worst critics. Most likely, whenever you're talking about something, if you're stuttering, fumbling over your words, etc., if you're, maybe haven't taken time to think about what you're going to say next, or you're pausing, whatever it is about your speech that makes you feel awkward or uncomfortable, you have to really embrace the fact that most likely it's not that bad and people don't care. People are worried about themselves. You're talking to somebody, and most likely they're probably not even fully listening, which is why my answer to Moss's question of how to make small talk was listen actively, and ask questions about things you're interested in. I think oftentimes small talk is hard because we're not actively listening. Our attention spans in 2020 for the average person has decreased. And so it's harder to stay focused on one topic. So when making small talk, you can just keep in mind that the person probably isn't paying 100% attention to you. So any small imperfections in your speech or your appearance probably aren't being processed consciously or maybe even subconsciously. So when you really internalize the belief and the understanding that, hey, this person that I'm talking to probably doesn't notice anything that I'm doing wrong if it is quote unquote wrong, as well as the fact that if they do notice, they probably don't care. When you really internalize that and you really understand that, that makes the feeling of awkwardness so much less intense because it removes the pressure. People are just people. No one's perfect. We all have our flaws. We all have our insecurities. And when you really understand and embrace that, it becomes so much easier. So that is pretty much the answer for that. It's just all in your head for the most part. Not to say that it's invalid because that feeling is definitely valid, but oftentimes it is very unjustified. I'm sure that you are perfectly fine and that no one for the most part is having any qualms with you or your small talking capabilities. And if they are, try out some techniques like what I talked about with Moss and focus on listening actively and asking questions about what they're talking about and actually genuinely giving a crap, especially if it is something that resonates with you. And lastly, if you do want some further, training, or just like tips about how to make small talk and just how to be more social in general, there's a really great book by Dale Carnegie called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I'll go ahead and leave a link below in the descriptions if you have some interest in reading it. It's one that I have read and is definitely a gold standard in social skills and selling and business development. So I highly recommend you check it out. So I'll leave an Amazon link on it to that below. And lastly, Jude asks, do you have any tips for networking on LinkedIn? Boy, do I. So part of what I want to get into in the future of my career is mergers and acquisitions. And so I have started the process of building my board of directors for a financial holding company. Now, some personal life events, some family members getting sick, as well as just some life occurrences have delayed that process. However, I was at the point where I had conducted 4 different interviews over the phone with different people from various financial heavyweights. There was one individual who I interviewed who was a vice president at a company that did $10 billion in revenue back in 2020. Yeah, back in 2020. So and all that was done through LinkedIn. So yes, I do indeed have a lot of tips for networking on LinkedIn. So I'm not going to go into too much detail because this is not a LinkedIn episode of the podcast, but maybe I'll do another future training in the future. Let me know once again below in the comments if you guys want me to do a training on LinkedIn. But here is a very basic 101. So firstly, you have to optimize your profile. So you have to first understand and be self-aware of what it is you're trying to achieve with networking, because you can try to make new friends. You can try to make, new job connections. You can maybe try to find a guest for your podcast, like me, maybe. So first, what is it you're trying to achieve? Then you basically want to present yourself in LinkedIn in an appropriate way. So for instance, if you're a big time corporate lawyer and you're trying to attract corporate clientele, you probably should not have your profile picture being you doing a shotgun with a beer, right? Is that fair to say? So make sure that your profile is optimized. And also in your bio or in your about me section, I believe it is, have what it is you're trying to do. So for example, for myself, I talk about how I'm in the process of building this holding company and how I'm looking for board members to get on and join the team. And literally, when I was sending out connection requests, I received some inbound messages saying, "Hey, I read your bio. I see your career path and your career history and what you have done, and I am interested in talking to you about this board position. I think we may be a good fit." So literally, people will look at your profile and will spend the time to read it, because my about me is rather robust and people spent the time to read it from top to bottom. So if you optimize your profile properly, you're going to already be ahead of most people who are on LinkedIn. So if you in your bio mention, I am looking to network and connect with XYZ type of people to help them with XYZ and achieve XYZ. So for myself, I am looking to connect with and meet leaders in the financial services industry as I am currently building a world-class board of directors, and we're going to together collectively build a amazing holding company in this sector. So that's what my bio sounds like. If you want to see it, my LinkedIn is my name, my at, just Josue Deloyer. So if you want to see mine and how I structured mine, you can always look me up. But that's an example. So now the second thing is, so now your LinkedIn profile is optimized and prepared and all set and good to go. Now, step number 2 is to once reach out, do outreach. So when you do reach out on LinkedIn, there are 2 ways to do it. When you send a connection request, you can add a message to it. And number 2, when you send a connection request, you can also do what is called an in-mail. So an in-mail is a message you can send with no, to my understanding, character limit. So you can literally send someone a dissertation for your PhD if you wanted to. But obviously don't do that because they're not gonna, they're either going to take it and run, or they're not going to connect with you. But what you can do is, if in the email you can send a more extensive introduction of yourself. Like, you can really go ham and let them know who it is, what you're doing, who you serve, and why they should connect with you. Now, the other option is just a simple, shorter, about I think 250 character limit message when you send a connection request. And either way you slice it, whether it's the longer email or the shorter connection request message, you should 110% do it. And the reason why is because LinkedIn is notorious for spam and sales solicitation. So you want to distinguish yourself for these people, especially if you're trying to connect with those who are higher caliber. You want to distinguish yourself and have them really know and understand that you are unique. You're a person on the other side of that screen. You're not a robot, and you actually care about them. So that is the first thing. So send a message. And what is it that you send? It depends on with whom you're trying to connect and your goal. I recommend saying who you are. So, for example, my name is Josue. I'm a principal leader of XYZ Venture to consult XYZ Venture, right? Why are you connected? I see that we have common interests within the financial services field in Tampa, Florida, right? And number 3, why you want to connect? I would like to connect with you to further discuss how we can mutually be of benefit to one another. Boom. If you include those 3 things, I will guarantee you that you will be successful, because that's what I did, and it has worked for me to a very large degree. Now, I do want to preface that not every single person will connect with you, and not every single person will be open to talking, and that is a-okay. There are millions of people on LinkedIn within every industry. And so I can guarantee that if you found someone that you think is a perfect fit for you, whatever it is you're networking for, and they aren't willing to connect for any reason, you will always find another. So hopefully, Jude, that does go ahead and serve you. So once again, you want to go ahead and optimize your LinkedIn profile. And then you also want to go ahead and know to whom you're trying to reach. And then make sure whether it's an email message or it is a connection request, make sure you include pertinent and important information in that message. Because if you don't, you're going to be seen as spam, and your chance for getting a successful connection will greatly decrease. Alrighty, so that does go ahead and wrap everything up. Thank you so much if you've watched up until this point. I hope that you did get a great amount of value from this. Once again, if you like this content, go ahead and subscribe. We're going to be coming back next week with even more. And go ahead and check the description for any resources that you may need. Once again, I'll be linking that book that is described below, as well as a chance for you guys to comment and leave any questions you may have to help direct the future of this show. And with that being said, thank you guys so much. And I will see you guys on the next episode next week. Bye-bye.